Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, once again, coming to you live in Technicolor, Chad Portal. Joining me, as always, is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, we had a communication issue last night. I had the date set up for a few weeks. Forgot to let you know about it. That's my bad. I went to the North Pole, which is really just upper Akron, but we'll call it the North Pole. And it was a fun little train ride, and we had fun. So yeah, but I forgot to communicate with that to you beforehand because I had 60 other things I had to do at the same time, and my bae.
It's all good, man. All good. I wasn't waiting by the window while the rain slowly dripped down.
Let the
And all that
rain
goodness.
fall down and wash away.
Yeah, it's not like I was certainly not pondering what we were talking about. It's kind of hard not to know exactly what we were coming into this week, as the IWC was a blaze after Lowdown's a final resolution.
Yeah, I figured out what I forgot to. I forgot to change the name of the show, but that's all right. We're just gonna edit it and post. The show this week is called the Tessa-versy because it's Tessa
Nice.
Blanchard and a controversy. So yeah. Real quickly, I do think looking at the results from the pre-show, I do think John Gresham is probably likely done. He lost to Frankie
Mm.
Kazarian in a one-on-one match by submission. Now, these might be future matches that we see on television, so it might have more to it than that. But I would say that that's probably not a good sign for his long-term viability. That being said, I think if you're the NWA, I think you throw whatever money you have at Gresham and you make him your champion and you let him go all over the world, kind of like what Nick Aldis did in what was that, like 2017 before they launched Power, and you just have him wrestle for whoever can get you notoriety.
Real quick, why do you think they never pulled the trigger with him in TNA?
I think one of the concerns, and it's something they tried to do two or three times, was his personality doesn't pop. And I think when you're trying to be TNA, one of the things you want to do is you want to have that kind of marketable, high end attraction like Joe Hendry. And I think when you look at John Gresham, you need to be a company with different attributes. It's kind of like how, my go to comparison. Michael Vick could never play in the Indianapolis Colts offense from the same era. He would be eaten alive. Same thing. Peyton Manning could not go and play in Michael Vick's offense in Atlanta. He'd be destroyed. I think Gresham is somebody that either needs to have a Japanese style system around him where he doesn't need to cut promos, or he needs to be in a promotion where there's not a lot of names around him and not enough skilled wrestlers where he can stand out as a technical in-ring worker. Now, he's one of the, and I say this generously, it might be tighter than that, but he's one of the 10 best in-ring workers in the world today, right now. So that's not some type of knock. Um, TNA has a lot of good in-ring workers. They're not like the WWE right now, where their in-ring work is dropping, but they're also not as flushed as say AEW. So Gresham does have a unique asset to himself, but I don't think he's someone that, as a headliner, stands out enough. And I don't think he's someone as an in-ring technician that gets people more excited for him than, say, Ace Austin or Speedball. So like you had guys who were comparable to him in that ring. Maybe not in style wise, like Ace and Speedball do different things, but they're just as fluid. So I understand why it can be a little hard to put Gresh over when he kind of does lack size. He lacks a little bit on the personality side. And if you're trying to find more of a mainstream appeal, he's not exactly the guy you want to go with. So like, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
Yeah, like you said, I think we talked about similar stuff with Bailey, unfortunately.
Yeah, Bailey has the same issue. The only thing that Bailey had different than Gresham was he was flashier in the ring.
Yeah,
Bailey also has a lacking personality, which is why I wouldn't have put the title on him either. Maybe if he stayed long term, you could find something to do with him. But one of the things Bailey needed more than anything was an image revamp. That kind of weird pseudo Power Ranger like thing he would wear, like with the big like jettoning shoulders. I was like, no, no, that doesn't work. So, but let's talk final resolution. Moose defeated Kushida. There's big hubbubaloo. Moose is going to introduce a new title at Genesis. And everyone's like, they're getting rid of the X Division. I've seen so many AEW accounts like, they're getting rid of the X Division. They're getting rid of the X Division. They're morons. They're not getting rid of the X Division. It's a storyline, you dolts. This is why I hate pro wrestling fans. I do. It's a storyline. Moose is doing this the standard big man hates X Division storyline. I get it. But people believe it because it's an easy dig at TNA. Like, a little TNA. But if you're actually watching the shows, you know that it's just a storyline. They're not getting rid of the X division. They invested like 12 grand in a new title. They're not getting rid of it. 9 months later. That's fucking stupid. So no, I don't know if Ace Austin's going to be the one who dethrones Moose. I think that makes the most sense, considering Ace has that sympathy going for him because Chris Bay is one of his better friends. He's been by his side throughout his recovery, and it makes sense that you would put the belt on him. But that being said, who knows where this is going? I'm interested in seeing it, but Kushida's going to be gone soon, and we'll talk more about that once we get to the end of the show. Not the end of the show, the end of the recap. The Rascals defeated Jake Something as well as PCO and Callahan in a three-way tag match. I like the pairing of PCO and Callahan. The issue with this obviously was that Jake Something was supposed to tag with Alexander Hammerstone, and Hammerstone hurt his knee. He's going to be out for a few weeks, maybe even a couple months. That's not great because I think Hammerstone's one of those guys that they're going to need to like really lean on once they lose, Alexander, once they lose whomever else. Most of the names they're losing aren't guys that I would be like, oh no, boo hoo. But you can't lose too many of those guys, and you definitely need Hammerstone, and I think you need to elevate something as well. I think both those guys need to step up, and I think as heels, I think they'd be great foils for Hendry. But we'll see how that all shakes out. The Rascals tag match was fine. Trent Seven's gone. Oh no, I'm so scared. Oh, no, not Trent Seven. Who cares? Trent Seven's one of the most overrated wrestlers TNA has signed in 15 years. I didn't fucking get it. Dude's not a good promo. He's like 43. Now I'm good. Jordan Grace and Rosemary went to a no DQ when Tessa Blanchard returned to the company and attacked Jordan Grace. We're going to talk more about that after the events of this card. Joe Hendry defeated Josh Alexander, Mike Santana, and Steve Macklin in the match of the night, I think. Very good match. Hendry now goes to Genesis, where I think everyone now knows that he'll win the world title. People are like, no one cares now. Listen, the people who are like, no one cares now, need to realize that like Stone Cold Steve Austin chased the world title for like 18 months before he finally won it. This, no one cares now, that's not true. Joe Hendry's going to win. Everyone's going to pop. People are going to be bringing him into the zeitgeist again. Like, stop. Stop. It's embarrassing. Though that's being said, Mike Santana looked great in this match. Obviously, Josh Alexander always looks
he's
good.
he's in go. I think, like I said, they've given Santana the proper treatment from you know building him up in every possible way, from reintroducing him as a single star, letting him get all his promos in, giving him the right matches, the right opponents, showing that growth in his in ring as he faced those opponents, and like just giving him that stairwell, if you will, not at all too dissimilar from what we saw so many years ago when Aries first came in and raged his way through the X division to introduce that option C to get to the world title. But yeah, I think he's in goal. I think yeah, it's wrestling Twitter is just like a cesspool of effery. Like the whole, oh my God, they're just doing the Cody thing with Joe Hendry. I'm like, they wasn't even gonna do the Cody thing.
Yeah, the problem with saying they're doing the Cody thing is that there was genuine concern after 39, WrestleMania 39, that they fumbled it with Cody. Then they made him wait a year. And the match they had was entertaining. I wouldn't say it was good. It was entertaining. But I think people kind of forget that when it comes to the Bloodline storyline, Cody's involvement in it was kind of like a layered experience. He wasn't the one to defeat the Bloodline, right? Because it wasn't about the Bloodline. It was about Cody finishing a story, and that was the overwhelming narrative that kind of trumped everything. Joe Hendry is not fighting a stable. He fought Nick Nemeth once, and he only lost because JBL interfered and cost him. So this idea that they're doing the Cody Rhodes thing, it shows you how stupid a lot of these big accounts are. And it makes me sad. It genuinely makes me sad. Because what the hell are we doing? That's why I push back so hard sometimes, because the narrative has to be honest. And too many people engagement farm by saying
Yeah,
stupid shit on purpose. And I hate it.
and because like I said, the teenage, the redheaded stepchild, the black sheep that everybody just waits to pick on, as you said before. They wait at the chomping at the bit, salivating at the gums to pick apart these things. Like I said, with WWE fans, it's just crazy because they're so willfully ignorant. I want to call it long term storytelling. It wasn't long term storytelling. It was The Rock. It was The Rock having his ego hurt because he was legitimately getting booed for running up in the storyline. And then when he couldn't take it, he, as the power broker that he is, wanted to change direction. They changed direction, and what happened happened. So the long term storytelling point is BS. Specifically when they came out with a damn WrestleMania video telling you they wasn't going to go in that direction. So I think the thing with Joe Hendry, like you said, um, I don't know how much the NXT partnership hurt or helped in terms of getting him to the TNA championship, but it does seem like he's regaining some momentum. And like you said before, like he needed to get serious. It does seem like they're trying to go in that direction. But like you said, even when we talk about certain people they losing, they do have quality candidates waiting in the rings. Like you said, Hendry seems to have next. Then after that, you always got Kazarian floating the wings with that trophy. And then Santana, I would imagine, is next up at bat. So they're not lacking in that regard. But with these flat scans, whoever did it first did it the best. So
And the funny thing is, like, Cody didn't do it first. Shawn Michaels did it first. Not even Shawn Michaels. But, like, what did he win it at? 13, 12? He won it at 12. He lost at 11. Like, he went to WrestleMania 11 and lost. Fans are stupid. That's what I've come to a conclusion on.
yeah,
Masha defeats Tasha Steelz in a pretty ho-hum Falls Count Anywhere match. The Hardys defeated the System in probably the match that had the most non-Tessa focused controversy. Here's the thing, and I need to be abundantly clear. Eddie Edwards is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I respect him implicitly. I think he's generally a good guy, and I think he's been a great stalwart for the company. He started the interaction on what was it, Friday night, that led to this. and people don't want to admit it, but it's true. Eddie broached a fan. The fan had a drink in his hand, and Eddie slapped his hand, and the fan lost the drink. The fan then slapped Eddie. Eddie slapped the fan back, then pushed the fan. But the narrative around this, for whatever reason, is that the fan slapped Eddie and Eddie slapped him back. No, Eddie slapped the fan first. Whether you want, well, it was his hand. I don't care. There isn't a part of your body that's legally accept. Like if I shoot you in the hand, I don't get to be like, but I only shot him in the hand. The cops be like, no, you're right. That's illegal. You don't get to touch a fan. Period. And I think people need to realize that just because this is a performance doesn't mean that the wrestlers get to step beyond the bounds of the performance. Just like the fans can't step beyond the bounds of the performance. Eddie should be suspended. The fan should have been kicked out. This is not a, well, the fan doesn't deserve to be kicked. No, no. The fan should have been kicked out and charges should have been filed against the fan. But also, Eddie should be suspended. You cannot touch a fan. And I don't know why he thought that was a good idea. Oh, I was being a heel. Brother, if you be a heel with me in reality, I'm a be a punching you in the throat. Like this whole streamer mentality. Oh, it's just a gimmick, bro. It's just a prank, bro. It doesn't actually fly. You put yourself in a situation that you shouldn't put yourself in. You exacerbate the situation with behavior that is unbecoming, and then you make something far bigger than it needs to be because of your own behavior, and that's what Eddie did. This isn't like a conversation. Well, no. Eddie it shouldn't have slapped him back. No, this is a conversation. Eddie shouldn't have touched him. Period. The fan was wrong to slap Eddie because two wrongs don't make a right. You don't get to be like, well, he slapped me first. I get to slap him back. No, no. But what Eddie did was wrong, and the fact that people are ignoring that aspect of the incident and confrontation really upsets me because it's fans. And granted, he's got a sterling reputation. So obviously fans are just going to take a side because that's how popularity works. We look past the flaws of the people we like. But it also makes the criticisms of these same people hard to take seriously because if you can't point out, hey, Eddie, you did something wrong, then I can't trust you when you tell me so and so is so great because you are already looking a blind eye past the actual circumstances of what happened. And I don't get why people
Yeah.
are so afraid to say that Eddie behaved improperly because he did.
Real quick, do you think this is not me playing devil's advocate? Because, like you said, the minute you tweeted like everybody was wrong in the situation, 100% correct. Do you think, for whatever final reason, because of how their brains are wired as wrestling fans, they viewed what he did with the slapping of his hand the same as like a heel grabbing a sign and ripping it?
Maybe, but even then, while not to the same degree as slapping a fan, I do think that you should just keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah,
Like that's the general gist that I think people need to take away from this. The conversation isn't well wrestlers can touch fans or that fans can touch wrestlers. It's that keep your fucking hands to yourself. Like this bully Ray. Well, I used to cause riots. Yeah, because you called everyone homophobic slurs and slapped people. That's not playing a heel. Ray Fiennes and Schindler's List didn't have to go to the audience members and slap them. He was just a bastard.
yeah,
So like I feel like wrestlers fall into cheap things easy. We like to point at it with Mick Foley, the cheap pops, right?
yeah,
Those are cute. Right here in Minnesota, bang bang. But the inverse of that with heels is doing things that are dangerous,
yeah.
illegal.
Cla- Classic example, MJF.
Yeah, like you can't really walk that line and then expect people to be like, well, no, I was just playing a character. No, you
Yeah,
physically touch somebody that you don't have any right to touch. You're not playing a
yeah,
character. You're
that's
you're just being a dick.
yeah. And maybe that's the willful disillusionment that fans allow themselves to be under because to your point, like the contract is the fans that buy tickets there to watch the entertainers come there to entertain. And obviously words are words, but physical altercation is something else. But the fact that when those fans are holding up those signs, that is technically their property.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen wrestlers either point to signs, grab signs, and give them back. But you've also seen over the years so many times that particularly heels grab the sign and rip it up. That's still wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And going bouncing off that to your point, when he knocked that drink out of that man's hand, that was his property and he ruined it. It's not like he was going to get a free drink then brought to him or Edwards was going to go and replace the drink. That drink was gone that he paid for, however much he paid for it. That drink was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the fan was already being belligerent, whatever with words. But again, words is not, touching somebody. So yeah, I think that that needs to be tweaked the way fans view that. But I think they categorize that or compartmentalize that under the concept of, well, he grabbed the sign and ripped it up. He technically is a heel, or God knows all that early stuff MJF was getting away with because he needed to blur the line so thin.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not cool. And I think that was just one example of it it not getting as serious as it could have gotten. Because I know fans get checked, but you don't really know what people got on them. And that really could have went left. It could have, the fan could have did more than slap Edwards, and Edwards could have did more than just return the slap. So thankfully it didn't go far, but that's just like a prime example of things could uh, not always go the way they should. But yeah, to your point, like that whole narrative about Edwards kind of being a hero here, it's not correct. And we big fans of Eddie here, as our listeners would know. But as you got to call a thing, and that was not. You knocked the man's drink out his hand. And like I said, that drink is gone. That's not
Mm-hmm.
a that that's not those drinks aren't comped on the house for fans. Everybody don't get handed free drinks. So yeah, we just that line needs to stop getting blurred. There's other stuff you can do as a heel without putting your hands on people or their property.
Exactly. If you can't get over without touching somebody, then you failed. Nick Nemeth defeated AJ Francis in the main event. Solid match, nothing to write home about. The big headline, though, the return of Tessa Blanchard. A thing in time that I don't think anyone saw coming. The news kind of broke that morning, or like maybe late the night before, that Tessa was coming back, and immediately the fandom went left.
Hmm.
How could they? She's terrible. She's this. She's that. Now, I don't think there's much in the way of defending Tessa. I don't disbelieve La Rosa Negra, who accused Tessa of saying some racist things to her. I don't know what she said. No one's told us what she said. Tessa and La Rosa Negra, to the best of my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, have made amends. I'm pretty sure there was a photo of them like a year or two after the allegations hanging out back in a locker room. There was also some accusations from Chelsea Green to Tessa about being a bully. And for the most part, I think Sienna was the one that brought up the allegations of potential racism, right? I think that's who it was. Could be wrong on that. Then there was a rumor that Jordan Grace didn't want to do business with her, and she pushed back against it. Clearly, after watching what happened at Final Resolution, whatever qualms or misgivings she had didn't hold up. She and Jordan Grace are now going to do a program, probably Jordan's last program before she leaves. And honestly, just looking at this from a talent perspective, Marcus, this is the match I've been wanting to see for 5 years. Just purely based on talent, not personality, but the way both women were produced, built, developed, and promoted. This is it. This is a huge match. They should get 20 minutes. Let's go. But because fans, I think, are more likely to be kind of like what's what I want to say? Like popular girls, where like you instead of actually caring about real issues. Tessa is now synonymous with terrible people. Maybe she is. Maybe she is. But when we have other people in this industry like Randy Orton, and let's put the hierarchy out there, right? Let's talk about hierarchy. Let's say being a racist is one of the worst things you can be. I don't think either one of us would say that it's a good thing to be a racist. We both agree it's bad. I think the worst thing you can be in this world is a child rapist. Then
Yeah.
a child murderer, then a rapist, then a murderer. That's your top four right there. You can throw in like genocidal warlord and all that, but those are like extreme, unique, specific instances. So like beyond those top four, I think sex-based crimes, your fifth echelon. We know a lot of dudes, even in the WWE, who have been accused of sex-based crimes ranging from rape to sexual misconduct.
Long history of sex pests in that company.
Yeah. One of them is beloved by everyone right now, and that's Randy Orton. He was accused of pulling out his genitalia, rubbing himself, and then shaking hands with people. The WWE, quote unquote, investigated it, and nothing happened. We also
That's
know,
okay.
and I want to point
Yeah,
this
that's
out, Kevin Owens was once a very good friend of Michael Elgin, and Michael Elgin once, to Kevin Owens' face, told a descriptive story of him sexually assaulting a woman, and Kevin Owens giggled. These aren't lies. You can go find these for yourself. Like they exist,
yeah. Potential defecation in bag going back to Orton.
right? Going back to Sean Waltman, Triple H backed Sean Waltman. Now, Sean Waltman was constantly high off his ass, and I like to believe in my own heart of hearts that Waltman is not the same person he was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But it still
Yeah,
happened. Like
yeah.
you can't just say, well, it didn't happen. No, it happened. And those are just some of the softer crimes. But like we don't go, well, the WWE is awful. Look, they're promoting Randy Orton. Like
He's too good in the ring, Chad. He's third generation. He's been there forever. He's a legend killer. He's an apex predator.
no, he's certainly a predator or something.
He's had our favorite wrestling move ever. He's so very good in the ring. 5-star matches every time.
So you think about like hang on. What's the Paul brother who worked for the WWE? Not Jake.
Jake Logan.
Logan. Uh, you got Logan Paul, who's being accused of pilfering people out of money. You also have Logan Paul having, I don't know if it's, we'll say pest-like behavior. He was once seen trying to, what is it called? Lassoing women in public like they were cattle. I don't think that's tier 5 material when we talk about the worst crimes a human can commit. It's not great, though. Vince McMahon, history. Stone Cold Steve Austin beat his wife. Now, he says it was, mutual defense or mutual battery, maybe. Still not a great look. There's so many stories of bad behavior from bad dudes or from dudes who are in a bad place that gets looked the other way. But yet with Tessa, it's like she murdered 38 babies who were just a different race than her, threw them into a garbage bin, and laughed maniacally as she went to a Klan rally. Like, That's how people talk about her. Yet the allegations are she said something racist to La Rosa Negra. What was it? I have no idea. No one's ever said.
Yeah,
She's
well,
hard to like. She's a problem in the locker rooms. TNA and women wrestling, she couldn't make it work. And also there's allegations about her being hard to work with in NXT. Yeah, great. You know who else is hard to work with? Stone Cold Steve Austin. Jeff Jarrett once said, "Your shirt is blasphemous, and I don't like it." And Stone Cold's like, "No, I will never work with him. He can never main event." That's pretty hard to work with when you can't say a thing that is factually true and then you ruin someone's career for it. That's not hard to work with.
yeah,
We hold Tessa to a different standard because she's unlikable. And she is. Not a great person on paper. Allegations. She was dating Ricochet, so, like, I don't know, that's a knock against her in some degree. Like, if you date Ricochet, I'm judging you. Just know that. Like, Samantha Irving, I think you are a delight. I think you're a great ring announcer. Wonderful. I'm judging you.
so
Whatever that.
so
Who was the little gymnastic chick that he dated before?
Katana Chance.
Yeah. Was it Katana Chance?
Yeah, Catanzaro, whatever, whichever. Is yeah.
I thought it was a little white girl. I thought Katana Chance was the black girl with the blue eyes and the big hair. Am I wrong on that? Wasn't she one of the NXT champions?
No, she's a tag team partner. Her name is Katana Chance and Caden Carter. Her name is Caden Carter.
Okay, so Kaden Carter's the one I thought was Carter. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I was right. It was someone in that tag team.
Yeah, it was Katana. Yeah, it was a small. Yeah,
So it's one of those things. Like, listen, if Tessa wasn't as unlikable as she is, I don't think this would be a big issue because she worked in CMLL for like a year. If you work in AAA, you're not necessarily a good person, but CMLL does have standards. They don't just let anyone work there. And Tessa worked there incident free, mind you.
this is the hypocrisy though. Like, and we talked about this when the whole I think what it was the plane ride from Hell Dark Side of the Ring episode.
Mm-hmm.
Where all the stuff came out. That was told about what how wild Flair was on that site. And then they had the commentary from Tommy Dreamer that got him suspended because of what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the conversation like the reason why he got the axe put to him a little bit is because we were just told about things that Flair got into or did, but we directly heard what came out of Dreamer's mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and we've heard about stuff that Tessa has done, and people have come out to corroborate the story, what have you. And there's some obviously when there's smoke, there's smoke, there's fire. But you hear about racist stuff that Tessa has done, and like you said, she's the worst thing ever. You heard Hulk Hogan say the N word.
Yeah.
You heard him try to say the N word, but he's such a pillar in wrestling. He's so people get second chance. He's such a pillar in wrestling, and everybody still want to eat their freaking vitamins. That you are literally trying to wipe away the behavior that he's still displaying.
Yeah.
Even worse now. And like I said, like you said, it's hypocritical. You want to pick and choose your villains, and she gives people that perfect avenue to hop on that high horse.
And I want to be again abundantly clear. I don't disbelieve the allegation against her. I don't disbelieve that
Same.
she's hard to work with. I don't disbelieve that she needs an attitude check. What I have an issue with is the severity in which we're talking about her, as if she was Jimmy Havoc or Marty Skrull or someone else of that ilk, right? We don't know half of the things that happened, and we also don't know if some of what's happening, and this is just me being hyperbolic, more or less me being kind of a conspiracy theorist. If some of these people that are talking about her are close friends, I think back to Baker Mayfield. Odell Beckham Jr. led this campaign alongside his father about how he was a bad quarterback. And everyone's like, well, yeah, if Odell, who's an elite wide receiver, saying Baker's a bad quarterback, Baker's a bad quarterback. Baker Mayfield's a top five MVP candidate in 2024. Odell Beckham is washed. It's very likely that Odell Beckham had more friends in that locker room when they played together than Baker did. And I think when you control the narrative, you get to control history. We've seen that time and time before. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing maybe to some degree with with Tessa is that maybe some people are, I don't want to say biased, but I think have been influenced to believe something that isn't wholly true. Now it might be. Again, we don't know. We don't know. But I do think it is suspicious that only some people in her kind of circle, or at least in the industry, have an issue with her, yet so many others don't. But because the people who have an issue with her, Jordan Grace, Chelsea Green, are so popular, I think it's warping the severity of her negative assets, if you will. I don't
Yeah,
think she's a great person. I do believe La Rosa Negra. I also don't
yeah,
believe that we can sit here and just pretend Randy Orton and Matt Riddle aren't who they are, and then be fine, and then hold Tessa to a different standard. I think that's a problem. Didn't Hannafin get busted sending dick pics to a teenager?
yeah. A lot of these guys got caught being outright pests. Like I wonder what the reaction would be if obviously we talking about a different race and gender, but if as TNA like debuted Patrick Clark,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like would they be more forgiving of that? Like it's just something, and I think it's a recipe very much in her own making. To your point, because of her more negative personality aspects, it makes it that much more easier to like lean towards the negativity because it's not like she's outright trying to lay down on the sword and lay herself before the court, if you will, of public opinion when it comes to these IW in the wrestling fans because she knows there's no winning that battle, and hopefully TNA knows that as well. We'll talk about it later, but there's maybe only a few directions they can even go with this, and it looks like the direction they're going in is probably the best. But yeah, when it comes like it's just you can't. It's just a one audience you just can't trust because most of this audience is also the audience that's trying to rewrite the history of, to your earlier point about some of the worst things you can do, a man who took out his wife, child, and then self deleted.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to rewrite that history so they can, proverbially kiss his butt online because of his wrestling skill. When obviously these crimes supersede anything he's ever did in the ring, sorry to say, but it just does. But again, people have their picks and chooses. They like to pick their heroes and pick their villains. And most of the times is at the earliest point of convenience, and that's not how this stuff works, particularly when these are truly deplorable human beings we're talking about. Wrestling ability, skill, moments aside, you gotta go with but it was just like it really was crazy just watching just how quick and how like thoroughly like she got bashed. Like I'm like, all the stuff we heard about Vince, and people are still not as that damn hard on him, which is weird.
It is weird, and I don't know if some of that has to do with gender. I don't know. That's not for me to dive into at this current moment. So,
Yeah.
from what I understand, Tom Hannafin's situation involved a woman of consenting age while he was married. But like, and that's not great. But it's not as bad as what Justin Roberts was accused of. Tessa Blanchard. One of the biggest things is that the bullying scandal, and I laugh so hard because like who are some of your favorites? All-time greats. Guarantee you they're bullies. More so, I did a quick deep dive thanks to SmackDown Hotel, and I found some names that are as controversial, if not more so than Tessa. And we're gonna go through them because I feel like we overreacted uh, to Tessa being brought in. First name we're going to talk about, Austin Aries. Litany of things. We're going to go backwards. Obviously, his last appearance in TNA, he flicked off Scott D'Amore and no sold the finish to the Bound for Glory match. Before that, he had a history of no showing, being difficult to work with. He body shamed, slut shamed, did all sorts of things. He stuck his crotch in Christy Hemi's face on live TV.
Yeah.
Brought him back. Didn't hear the same kind of outrage. Now he wasn't universally welcomed, especially because he defeated Pentagon after Pentagon won the world title, and everyone was super into Pentagon. But like when we talk about like rosters in TNA, we talk about like management. One of the things I don't miss about Scott D'Amore is his fucking roster. Because he would always get these sons of bitches involved. And it's like, really? Next up, Bobby Fish. Not so much due to his own beliefs, but he ran with dudes who were into the QAnon movement. I don't think you can sit here and say, like, well, Tessa bullied someone. She was mean to Chelsea, and she never said sorry. It's a very childlike approach to disliking someone. When you are into the QAnon movement and you either support and or are also into it, I think that trumps bullying. That's just me because you're talking about a group that spreads misinformation and riles people up to do dangerous and deadly things. So not great. And that was a Scott D'Amore hire. Thom Latimer, current NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. He was brought in. Now, his issues came afterwards. His biggest issue coming into TNA was that he sucked. But he was, if I remember correctly, arrested for holding someone against their will. And I think when that's the allegation, you don't come back from that.
Well, this before or after his marriage to
I think it was in the death throes of it.
okay,
As his relationship with Charlotte Flair was ending, I think he did. I think this is what happened.
gotcha.
So on August 30th, so he divorced her. It just says 2015. On August 30th of 2015, Latimer was arrested and charged with 2 felony counts of domestic battery and strangulation and false imprisonment. The incident did not involve Flair, but did involve a woman being reported as Latimer's girlfriend. Latimer was released from jail on September 1st. Posted bond for $5,000. Eventually, all the charges against him were dropped. On October 29th of the same year, Flair and Latimer divorced. And he was in TNA right up until then, it looks like. Correction. It looks like he was in TNA during and after. He was in TNA for a long time after. Now, did he do it? I don't know. Just because charges get dropped doesn't mean you're innocent, but just because you were charged doesn't mean you're guilty. It's the Schrodinger's cat of legality. But
Mm.
then he went on and did a Tornoa, which got him fired because he was acting like a dick, and Noah suspended him. And I think that ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back because a couple months later he was let go from TNA. So Tom Latimer, not a great dude. Brian Kendrick, I think, is a conspiracy theorist who even said that Sandy Hook didn't happen. Let me
No,
double
not
check
another
that.
one. I know he's a weed head, but Jesus.
Yeah, he's big dumb. Uh, sorry, no, he didn't say anything about Sandy Hook. He said things about the Holocaust.
Oh dear God,
So, not better. Oh, wait,
dude. That
my bad. He did say things about Sandy Hook. Now, again, much like with Thom, most of this happened after the fact. But I don't even know when he was saying these things. So like maybe he was saying it beforehand.
it's even weirder too, because it's like that's you want to believe like that's not the type of stuff that just one of you get bored and like okay you sat down on a computer did a bunch of research and just came to that conclusion. No, you felt that way for a long time.
Yeah.
It's
So
not something. It's not something you just come to one day. Like, you know what? I don't think that happened.
so it says that he made these comments in 2011, and I know he was in TNA in 2011. Let me double check. I know he was in there. I just don't know for how long he was in there. That's what I'm checking.
'Cause I want to
Uh,
feel like not too long after that he went to the WWE as part of 205.
yes, he did. So it looks like he was in TNA until 2012. I don't know when he exactly wrapped up in 2011. So it may have been as he left TNA, but still, he went to New Japan, went to WWE. So like those comments were known, right? Like they were absolutely known. Hey, Matt Hardy's on this list. Would you like to take a guess why Matt Hardy is on this list?
We could almost do a whole separate pod on the hardest man.
Right.
Honestly,
So Matt Hardy's on this list because he had a quote unquote bloody brawl with his wife. Mm. This was in 2014. So a decade ago. So like he's clear and he's still with his wife. But I think beating your wife trumps racism maybe, maybe not. Maybe that's a 1-to-1. Beating your wife trumps bullying.
that, that's a weird one too. Cause wasn't this the only time he was doing the broken stuff?
No, this was a couple years before. This was 2014. Broken stuff was 2016, 2017.
Oh god, this wasn't the harder, not the dreaded cold blooded he was doing.
No, this was fortunately this was slightly after the cold blooded.
Oh, not he was beating his wife with the braids. No,
I think though, looking at Matt Hardy, um, this is one of those examples, right? Where you look at Matt Hardy, got arrested for fighting his wife, bloody brawl, what have you. And whether he started it or she started it, whether it was drugs or not, he got a second chance, and he is a stalwart of the company right now. Like he's a major player, and I, for one, am happy he's in TNA. My pointing out he got arrested for assaulting his wife isn't to be like ha ha ha. It's to say y'all were fine with him coming back. Okay, so like
yeah,
Bully Ray, history of slurs being used, history of bullying people. Now,
bullying,
granted,
yeah, exactly.
Bully doesn't have the best reputation right now, but Bully Ray maybe single handedly gave Rene Dupree CTE from his unprotected chair shots. Bully Ray quite literally, I wouldn't even say abused people in the locker room. He assaulted them. And he was not only signed by TNA in 2005, he was re-signed nearly every time his contract expired for a decade. He went back to the WWE, got a huge pop. Went back to TNA, made some big headlines. But yet he has a history of bullying people. It's literally his name. But Tessa, that's the line. Bully Ray can encave someone's skull in with an unprotected and unexpected chair shot like he did to Rene Dupree. We're cool with that for 20 years until he starts saying our favorite's not so good. That's when we get mad at him. And it's like, again, hypocrisy. Either bullying is an issue, in which case Bully Ray needs to never be a thing again, or it's only an issue when the wrong person does it. Continuing on, Dave Christ. Now, his issues got him fired and blackballed from wrestling. So that's not exactly the best 1-to-1, but he was still hired And these allegations weren't exactly, like unfound. Like people knew about this for a while. Apparently, I don't know how deep the investigation or the what's the word I'm looking for, background check was on Dave Christ. God knows he was signed by TNA in part because they were trying to make Sam Callahan happy. But I think the Chris brothers actually did quite a good job. But the problem is like if you did, any bit of research, would you have found something? Like look at the WWE. They just their new former ESPN hire, right? Got fired from ESPN for making derogatory terms about women. Two women. And then the WWE signed him. And this wasn't like a shocking thing. They knew about it in 2021, long before the WWE signed him. So, did you investigate and just say no? Or did you not investigate at all? Same situation with Dave Christ. Did we investigate? Or did we just go, oh, fuck it? Don Callis is another name. Now, Don Callis' allegations, and again, these are all just allegations. I say nothing as far as it goes to the legitimacy of these claims. Don Callis was allegedly accused of misappropriate conduct towards Scarlett Bordeaux, and it's why she and Karrion Kross left, allegedly. And yet AEW signed him, brought him in, signed him to a fat money deal. Is being a creep to women not as bad as being a bully to women? I don't know. It's certainly interesting. Hum- Aoko, I think is that right? Aoko Hamada? I always just called her Hamada. If you look up Hamada's story, it's riveting. She got arrested, if I remember correctly, for was it as a drug runner?
Oh wow.
Yeah, let me check this out before I get too far ahead of myself. In 2018, she was arrested for possession of methamphetamine. Her arrest resulted in pro wrestling terminating her contract. On July 18th, she was given an 18-month suspension. I thought her issues were far more outlandish. Maybe not. Maybe it was just the methamphetamine arrest. I thought she was arrested on suspicion of distribution,
Mm.
but maybe not. But she was still arrested for having meth, and when you're a meth head, that's hard to it's hard
Yeah,
to
that's a
bounce
very
back from.
specific thing and look.
So let's talk about Jessica Havoc. Now, she's not a great one because I don't know anyone who likes Jessica Havoc. I don't think anyone would be like, who we should sign Jessica Havoc. That person does not exist, like at all. So like she doesn't have any upside the way Tessa has upside. Um, but when she was trying to go for a WWE tryout, um, basically a bunch of very unbecoming messages were leaked. Um, this is from SB Nation. When Havoc found out about the controversy, she initially started deleting some of her derogatory and insensitive tweets, which she made in 2011 and 2012. These included racial and homophobic slurs, telling people to get AIDS and die or kill themselves, and made a crude racist joke about Mark Henry being angry on television. TNA signed her 2 years later. And then, she did the half-hearted apology. I want to apologize wholeheartedly for the old tweets. This was 2015, she said this. I want to apologize wholeheartedly for the old tweets that are being brought to light now. It was 3 years prior. It's not like she
Yeah,
was
but
making them. It's not like her old blog spot from 2002 popped up. Like, okay,
like
2015,
like
2002, like, yeah, 13 years. This is like 2.5 years prior.
like
What do you mean?
AKA ignore all this bad stuff that can currently get me taken away from my current job. Ignore it.
Like, this would be like Hulk Hogan being like, I was young, I was immature when I said those racist things. You were 60. Young, immature.
I was in my youth.
So, like, she got hired after that. Didn't hear a peep. A lot of the conversations around Hernandez and his behavior are more recent. But even in, what was it, 2016, 2017, he lies to TNA about his contractual availability, getting them fucked, and having to take him off TV and basically keeping him gone until, what was it, 2019 when he came back to feud with Santana and Ortiz.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that's as bad, but the stuff he's being accused of these days, not great. I'll let you guys go and do some research because it's not great. Obviously, we got the Hulkster. Yeah, how you doing, Hulkster? His racist comments came out after the fact, right? I think it was 2015, 2016. We found out how much of a racist he was. But the belief of him being a racist permeated for decades. There wasn't a lot of people who was like, well, yeah, Hulk Hogan's not a racist. Plus, his behavior has always been terrible. Now, that being said, his star was still pretty big in 2010 that you could justify bringing him in if it was a beneficial move. It wasn't. It ruined the company. It stalled them for probably what? 10 years, maybe? 11 years? 12 years? The company was rebuilding itself for a good 5 or 6 years after he left still. So he's not great. The allegations against him are numerous. They're wide: racism, bullying, bad politics,
habitual
destroying
lying.
careers. What's that?
Yeah, being a habitual liar.
Yeah, you can't trust anything he says. TNA brought him in. Now, granted, there was a fair amount of critics that were there in 2010, so I don't want to say that he was like a beloved signing. There were a lot of people who didn't like it. TNA used Evilise a few times. If there's one woman who has a worse reputation in the locker room, it's Evilise. Because as we know right now, WWE has there's already rumors. If Tessa has a good run in TNA, WWE's already interested. There are people in the back who want to work with her. That is not the case for Evilise. So kind of keep that in mind. There are people like CMLL chomping at the bit to work with Tessa Blanchard. WWE chomping at the bit to work with Tessa Blanchard. Evilise, one of the best workers of her generation among all the women. Nothing. I don't even think she's wrestling anymore. At least not wrestling anywhere important. We're going to do a quick little look. Evilise.
I thought a lot of her I guess not appearing in a certain place because they thought she was injury prone.
Oh, no, it has mostly to do with the fact that she's ungovernable.
Gotcha.
She's wrestling in Shine still, where she was actually the champion up until September, which I guess she still is technically. And she was wrestling in, what is this? It looks like Puerto Rico. I see. No, Immortal Championship Wrestling. Never heard of it. So she's still wrestling, but she's not wrestling on the same level. But I will say this. Just gonna throw this out there. You already brought in Tessa. Why not Evilise? That's all I'm gonna say. All I'm gonna say. Jay Briscoe. We like to go out of our way at times, I think, and recontextualize a person's life when they die. It's
Yeah.
natural. You're mourning, and it's easier to go, well, he was a great guy, because it's a lot easier to say than he was a complicated guy, and yet despite that, I'll still miss him. He famously, what did he do? Threaten to kill people if they tried to teach his children that being gay was okay. or fight them or something like that. He was very homophobic. People like to make up this narrative. Well, no, he changed. Look how good he was with his daughter. Not saying he wasn't. After he died, I believe it was an evangelical church that they went to interviewed her about how she was dealing with the aftermath of her father's death. I don't think you go to those kinds of churches if you quote unquote changed. Yet, despite that, despite never really apologizing for it, and despite the fact that he still had a lot of problematic views, Ring of Honor brought him in, TNA brought him in, AEW brought him in. Very little outroar, very little outcry, very little, conversations about, hey, should we be bringing him in?
Yeah, and also that is like one of the worst excuses you could use. Like most of the most vicious domestic abusers treat their moms like queens.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole like, look how good he is with his daughter. Yes, because that's his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? That has nothing to do with him, being, racist, bigoted, or other phobics he could have been. Which, if I'm not mistaken, didn't that get said in like a promo or something?
No, he said it on Twitter.
Oh,
It,
okay, gotcha.
it wasn't like with like Excalibur, where he called someone a racial slur in a promo designed to make him look bad because he was a heel. It was not the same situation. Now, Ian Riccaboni said something to the effect in 2021: if folks only knew how Jay supports and puts all over town, especially LGBTQ plus town, as a leader in the locker room. But again, if you're friends with somebody, what does that tell you? Like, I would rather hear people who don't like Jay Briscoe tell me what you think of him after the fact. That would be what I would want to hear, not people who liked him. What do people who don't like you say about you? Dave Meltzer stated that within the wrestling business, Jay Briscoe is considered to have completely reformed his views on the LGBT community following his death, following his tweets, excuse me, from the early 2010s, and that Pugh had which is Jay Briscoe's real name, had the support of wrestlers such as Effie. All that may be true. All that may be true, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't know. What I will say, true or not true, people were far more accommodating for Jay Briscoe coming back. He got a second chance. He never really publicly apologized. He had other people speaking for him. That's not the same thing as an apology. What I will say is that if you can give Jay Briscoe a chance, you can give Tessa Blanchard a chance. Jeff Hardy. Do I have to list the issues?
Yeah.
Do I? Like we know Jeff Hardy isn't a trustworthy human being. He got brought back. He gets brought back all the time. Short of like shooting his wife, this dude is untouchable. It doesn't matter what he
Yeah.
does. He'll get brought back.
Yeah. Jeff is that family member who you always see at the family reunions coming up, you asking you for money, who always telling you they getting clean.
Yeah, I got one of those. Speaking of
Sorry.
one of those, Joey Ryan. Now everyone's gonna be like, "Well, Joey Ryan was only outed during his run with TNA." The allegations against Joey Ryan were prevalent for years, dating back to I think his time in Shikara. I think there was allegations that permeated around then as well. Like, do we do any background checks in wrestling? Like, Jesus Christ, I don't get it. I don't get it. Conan, much like with Jeff Hardy, do I got to go into the details? He's one of the biggest scumbags in wrestling. Yet up until recently, he kept finding work in the States. Now he's stuck in AAA because nobody else wants him. Putting on half-assed. I don't even know if he's in AAA anymore. I don't even know what Conan's doing anymore besides making a bad podcast. Hey, how you doing? um, let's see. I think Conan was with Crash for a while. Let's see. during 2010, Conan began to clash with Latin lovers, so he's still with AAA. He worked with MLW for 4 years, so like people still work with Conan. Matt Riddle recently popped up in TNA with all the allegations that he's been dealing with. So I think that's something to point out. Granted, his debut was met with a lot of what the fuck. So fair. Michael Elgin, again another name that was brought in after the fact, but even he had issues. He had issues with the Ring of Honor. He threatened to retire and go play pro baseball. He had issues with New Japan. And yet TNA still signed him. Turns out maybe you shouldn't try to sign guys who can't get jobs elsewhere. Just saying. One of our personal favorites, but someone we had to point out, Moose. Moose was accused of assaulting a woman. Not great. But I think most fans have taken to him to some degree. I don't know if the allegations against him are true or not. Obviously, like we are not in a place to know this. But he's been in the company since, 2018, 2017? So I think it's fair to say that Moose was given a second chance and has nailed it. And Moose is a big fan of Tessa. They're good friends. Maybe that doesn't speak volumes to Tessa. Maybe that doesn't speak volumes to Moose. But it's worth pointing out. Sadly, Rich Swann. Currently, he's in rehab dealing with some issues, but he was arrested for an issue with his wife where they had such a confrontation, she felt the need to flee, and Swann chased after her. Now, that's the facts of the situation. The color to the situation can be anything. Maybe Su Yung was having a psychotic break and Swann went after her to protect her. Maybe Swann was having a violent outburst and Su Yung left to try to get away from him. We don't know. What we do know is that Swann chased Su Yung. They're still together. They have a kid. I don't know if they're happy. We don't know that they're not happy. But TNA still brought him in. Lastly, Marcus, and this is kind of more the port in the storm. Kurt Angle, while with the company, allegedly stalked and harassed his ex-girlfriend, Raka Khan. Allegedly, obviously. But he was found in his car like 3 blocks from her in a town he doesn't live in. Suspect. Not only did TNA not fire him, but he stayed on the company for another 6 years. And if he comes back tomorrow, there'd be a lot of fans who are very happy to have him back. The point of all this isn't to vilify any one person or to minimize Tessa Blanchard. It's that notion that if we don't give people an opportunity to prove they changed, then we may be missing out on some pretty spectacular stuff. I'm not so dogged that I think Tessa Blanchard needs to be taken out back and shot like a rabid animal, like some fans are. And I don't think we need to ignore the issues so much that we can't have a conversation on the fact that she needs to be on the proverbial short leash. We should be watching her behavior. We should be monitoring her behavior. We should be having people talk to her, be like, this is how we expect you to behave. Don't fuck up. If we don't get that, we're in trouble, right? But I think if we're managing things, if we're helping her develop into a proper adult, these shouldn't be issues. And I think if that's the case, if we're really kind of set on rehabilitating Tessa, these have to be the standards. Like you cannot be a problem in the locker room. You cannot, cause issues. You have to be on your best behavior. If you're not on your best behavior, you're not going to be in this company anymore. And if those aren't being said to her, then TNA as a whole has a culture problem. If they are being said to her, I don't have a problem with this being a thing. When you give someone an opportunity, they can surprise you. And I'm hoping she does. Marcus, I'm a white dude. You're not. You will have a different perspective than me, and I'm all right with that. I would love to hear how you feel about the Tessa of it all.
Yeah, also I'm no fan of anybody who's on any type of racist kick or what have you. And beneath that is the same stuff you called out in terms of crimes and severity, what have you. And we're on the same wavelength in terms of we greatly dislike bullies and just bigots in general. But yeah, like we said, we're not sitting up here trying to clear her name or anything like that. We said it when there was a lot of smoke and obviously there was some fire, specifically because I don't think we had seen outside of what we saw with the speaking out movement within the world of wrestling. I hadn't seen a dog pile like that on social media in terms of wrestlers. Certainly with women, I don't know if ever specifically like that. So, like you said, that lends you to believe that a lot of that stuff was true. Obviously, like you said, she may have mended some fences behind the scenes because it comes out more disingenuous when everything needs to be on social media and just outright front just because we live in a culture now where everything just has to look a certain way so people can think they're controlling the narrative. But hopefully she's tried to clear some of that dust up behind the scenes, obviously, like you said, unless she's come out and delved out any apologies. And I'm not one of those people at this juncture with everything that we've seen that be begging for people to give apologies out in certain instances because obviously I think for a lot of fans that's feeding their ego. I would prefer if she uh, gave that energy to the wronged parties that were involved in those instances. But I'm right there with you, man. Like we've seen people change, and for both good and bad, as a TNA fan, the company has been a place for second chances with a lot of people, particularly their career, particularly reshaping how people have seen them going from nothings to like main eventers, world champions, what have you, and then obviously going on elsewhere where that revamped reputation has benefited them. So when it comes to Tessa, I'm right there with you, man. Like, you got to keep on a short leash. Obviously, you got to you bringing her back has is already them foregoing the popularity contest. You're not winning that at this juncture. Like, this is not the time. If this is their this next phase is their Infinity War. This ain't the time to put a wedding veil on Thanos. We know why he's here
Hmm.
and what he's here for. You know what you got to do. So with her, and from what she did, who she attacked, and the response that she got out of Jordan, it seems like they're going in the proper direction. And when I was thinking about it, and I definitely want to talk to you about this, it kind of threw me back to what happened with Jeff and also that horrid match, that horrid situation, because you can't even call it a match, what happened with Sting. When he had to come back, they delved it off into it because it was too in your face to ignore. And I feel like they're doing the same thing with Tesla. The best thing to do is to just dive head first into what it is because you can't do this fallen angel, reformed uh, chick that's coming in here. Like, she's saying she was the reason she put the company on her back and got it the way it is. And that level of arrogance that a lot of people are already assuming she has may be the only thing that can get a quality storyline, particularly with somebody like Grace, who proverbially picked up the ball that she dropped when all this stuff happened. So again, to your point, that's really the perfect storm in terms of program and story and a perfect opponent. And if we're being quite honest, for most of the year, we have been consistently saying that for as great of a champion as Jordan was and is, she did not have the adequate competition to meet her a lot of times as that champion. And hate or love her, Tessa has the skills to do that. If nothing else, they can't bank on anything else. They can't be assured of anything else with her personality wise, what have you. They can bank on this girl's skills,
Hmm.
and that's what you got to do. You got to lean into that, like you said, keep on a short leash. Really, you got to kind of jump into the villain of it all because everybody's already decided it. So get as much out of it as you can and kind of let the chips fall where they may. But like you said, as a black fan, I'm weary of it because obviously we don't know these people from a can of paint, and a lot of times, a lot of people don't necessarily change. A lot of them just kind of tweak certain things because of the opportunities and environments they're in. So, like you said, with the havoc, going back to the habit point, it's like, oh my God, I've changed. Like, just ignore all this stuff. It's like, that was a year ago. That was a year ago that you said and did all that stuff. So, a lot of times people kind of just switch up to make the current situation work for them. Hopefully, that's not it here. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to make her give out some apology to make me feel good. Like, you apologize to those offended parties who came out and was like, you full of BS. And hopefully she can redeem the like pick up the ball that she dropped uh all those years ago, and hopefully this is a regime that won't see a lane for her to become a world champion again. So yeah, the men's world champion, I should say.
Yeah, you have hit the nail on the head. The thing with her is proof. You want to see that she's changed, that she is a different person than who she was, but that takes time. That takes a serious amount of actual, like, practical behavior. Like, we have to see it, we have to hear about it. One of the things, like, you look at CM Punk, like, one of the biggest redeemers right now has been all the public praise he's been getting since returning to WWE. And it's pissed some people off, but the vitriol that a lot of fans had after he left AEW doesn't exist now because of so much of the goodwill he's built up after the fact. Now, granted, CM Punk's always been divisive, but he's always been divisive with people who didn't like morality. He's a firm believer in women's rights, and that pisses some people off. Tessa's issues are that she might be a racist. That pisses a lot of people off. So Tessa doesn't have the same goodwill. That doesn't mean she can't put the best version of her forward, earn the respect of those that have once dogged her, and maybe earn some genuine goodwill through her behavior. That'll take time, it'll take effort, and it's going to take a hell of a lot of shit eaten. But maybe, just maybe, she can do it. And if she can't, you don't give her a third chance. You say hasta lasagna, don't get any on you, and you throw her out the door. But if she does keep her nose clean, does rehabilitate her image, and does stick around, I think you got yourself the woman who should have been carrying the Knockouts division before Jordan Grace was the juggernaut. And I think that's a great thing. But this is a gamble. This is absolutely 100% a gamble. And there should be no one who thinks, whether you support her or not, there should be no one who thinks that this isn't a genuine kind of, what's the word I want to say? Um, it's a rehabilitation project, and there's a genuine chance that this goes sideways. So, with that being said, I do think trepid optimism is fair,
Yeah.
but I'm also not expecting miracles. Marcus, any final thoughts on this week's show?
Go check out Final Resolution Solid Show. They've been putting out solid shows all year, and it's like I said, it's been cool to slowly but surely watch those numbers increase. And like I said, they got pretty much most of the next year, the rest of this year, most of next year laid out. Hopefully, any rumors circulating about certain things are just that, and we can continue to see some elevation. I know a lot of people are feeling right now. I see the classic thing, you know, one step forward, TNA two steps back. And that's really easy to say and promote the narrative of when decisions like this happen. But again, it's a lot of it's selective outrage and classic hypocrisy, because when stuff happens in other companies, a lot of times they get the benefit of the doubt, or just the outright excuse because they're bigger and they could just move pieces however they want to do at any given time. So you got to give TNA their allowances. Like I was telling Chad, when this first kicked off, they started the year with what everybody thought was going to be the worst decision, and the numbers went up. Uh, and now they ending the year in what everybody's calling the worst decision. So we're gonna see. And like I said, if nothing else, they consistent. This new regime has been interesting to say the least. And with numbers going up, it's kind of hard to question all of it, even with big names exiting. So as we do as TNA fans for decades, we just gotta hang in there.
Yeah, and the big names leaving, and we'll go through this real quick and then we'll leave. Rhino, Kushida, Jade Chung, Trent Seven, AJ Francis, Josh Alexander, and Jordan Grace are all expected to be gone or have contracts expiring within the next 2 to 3 months. So could be a very different roster, but not necessarily a bad roster because some of these guys I think need to go, and some of these guys I think would be better off being refreshed in other companies. But that'll be a conversation for a different day. Marcus, we are done for the night though.
Yes, sir.
RealNerdCorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com. We're on Twitter at NERDCRP. We're on Twitch.tv and YouTube.com at Wrestling Underground for both of them. Marcus, you're on Twitter at Paradox Kid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, on Twitter at True Penny Show, TruePennyShow. I'm on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, CHDNERDCRP, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut, CHDSPHOTOHUT. You can find us next week at another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast, although we're going to have to check to see, because next Tuesday is the 24th. So we'll have to convene and see. We might be off until the 30th. We'll see. We'll see. Our next show may be our year-end show, so we'll have to reconvene about that here in a couple days. So for Marcus Green, I'm Chad Porto. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.